there's this show going on right now called Danmachi. Try not to pick up girls in a dungeon. And basically, Danmachi has a lot of gods and goddesses, and I am late. That's right, I watched the first season when it came out, 2015 or something, and I haven't actually picked up any form of Danmachi since then. So, I know season 4 is going on right now, and I want to catch up. So, I did want to get back in touch with every god and goddess in Danmachi. I wanted to be caught up. I want to be caught up. And also, the other reason why I decided to make this be the Danmachi video to get me back into it is simple. I have 2 reasons as to why I feel like this is an important video to look at right now. 2 reasons. You know, I won't tell you the 2 reasons.
Upper world of Tenkai descended upon humanity to live amongst the beings of the lower world. They had become intrigued by human social constructs like culture and business, and decided that these phenomena would serve as their entertainment.
Yeah, a lot of people roast Danmachi because, you know, it's just such a basic show. It is such a basic plot. You know, there's the dude, there's the dungeon, there's the harem, there's all that. But I would argue that Danmachi actually does a really good job with world building. That is something I remember very, very well from the OG Danmachi.
They went in search of new experiences, ones that couldn't be found in their old, boring, perfect worlds. Things like food, hobbies, art, and friendship looked as if it would bring this whole new wave of excitement to these gods who simply sat idly by.
The Fifi, I forgot! Loki is the Fifi cosplayer in the group.
In their own world. Long story short, they left their positions as the eternal monitors of Gekkai to go experience these things for themselves.
I just think of Fifi every time this comes on screen.
But the full history behind their descent is a topic for another day. Right now, you're here to learn about every god and goddess.
I am!
So, let's get to it, starting with the ones that we know the least about. In Sword Oratoria, the side story anime to Danmachi that literally nobody watched, where
I didn't! Man called me out.
Shown the god known as Uranus. He's named after the primordial Greek god of the sky, with the word itself meaning sky or heaven.
I'm pretty sure Uranus was not one of the Greek gods of the sky. I think Uranus was a titan of the sky.
Which is rather fitting because, although likely unknown to you, this god was one of the first to descend from Tenkai. You see, a lot of the gods and their familias tie deeply into the mythological characters that they're named after. Obviously, the gods have a much more clear similarity to their fabled counterparts, but even their children have a lot of symbolic traits that they can relate to as well. As for Uranus, given that in mythology he was one of the first gods to be born out of the void of chaos, the place that existed before the earth itself, it makes sense why he'd be one of the first people to descend to Gekkai. But unlike the other gods who came after, his reasoning wasn't for fun or excitement. He came as an administrator, a supreme god that would moderate all others through the very guild he established when he first descended upon humanity. That's why he's often referred to as the father of Arario. Although he has the power to do so, he doesn't attempt to rule over Gekkai as an overlord. He merely monitors and moderates the gods and their powers in the lower world. Should a god need to use their arcanum, they would have to make a direct request to Uranus himself. Only with his permission can they use their divine power and not be punished for it. We actually see this very briefly in action during the War Games arc. Hermes makes a request to use his arcanum, and we hear Uranus respond to give him permission.
Wait, so all the gods need to go through this? That's an interesting power system.
There's plenty more going on behind the scenes that will slowly be revealed as the story goes on. Next we have Zeus and Hera. These are 2 gods that are best talked about together since their role in the story is a shared one. You see, not too long before the current events of this series, in fact, only 15 years before it, both Zeus and Hera stood above all other gods as
who is she and where can I find her?
The ones with the strongest familia. It's quite fitting considering their mythological roles as the king and queen of the gods. Of course, I'm sure you're well aware that they're not around anymore. So, what happened? As I mentioned last video, the world bestowed upon Arario 3 great quests, each being a powerful monster that had escaped from the dungeon. Now, Zeus and Hera were at the height of their power, with adventurers in their familia that were considered to be some of the most powerful in history.
Yo, I really like the concept that despite all these really important ideas going on in the world of Danmachi, we're not following the most important. You know, we're following Bell from this tiny little house, this tiny little family, doing his thing. I really, really love the fact that there's so many more important things going on that we're not even getting into.
To accept this quest, the Leviathan and Behemoth were taken care of. But it was the Black Dragon who proved to be a more powerful adversary. And it was this Dragon King who wiped out both Zeus and Hera's familias, leaving them nothing left but to turn Arario completely vulnerable.
This is some backstory. God, I didn't know any of this.
Loki and Freya saw this as a great...
God damn, Freya. Is this official art? Either her hands are really small or there's something else really big.
To seize their own places at the top as the strongest familia.
Oh, Loki, I'm so sorry. Oh, Loki.
So they both teamed up and waged war on Zeus and Hera, eventually leading to Zeus and Hera being banished from the city. I mean, there was really nothing that they could do. and the guild didn't have any means to stop it from happening.
Damn.
As for what they're doing
That's rough,
now,
buddy.
well, no one really knows where Hera went. But we know from the end of Season 1 that Zeus moved out to the country and raised his adopted grandson Bel, only to later go out
Bel is the adopted grandson of Zeus?
and fake his own death for reasons unknown. So those were the old top dogs of Arario. Now we have Loki and Freya. I'm sure you're quite familiar with the fact that Loki
What the frick was that?
for the trickster god of Norse mythology. An interesting thing that you may not have known
She tells you she has boobs when in fact she has none.
was that he had the ability to change his shape and sex. Thus, likely why Loki has a more androgynous look to herself.
No.
I mean, Bel even thought she was a guy when he saw her for the first time, especially since she likes to dress like a guy a lot. As for what she does for
That's why I always call Fifi dude.
Arario, well, considering that she's one of the top 2 familias in the entire city, it makes sense that her familia is focused around dungeon exploration. Her children lead many expeditions through the deeper floors of the dungeon, but it has been noted that just like her namesake, she does like to cause a bit of trouble with the other gods.
Oh.
Now, Freya as the more powerful
Freya. I am here for the Freya.
goddess is named after the Norse god of beauty and love,
Give it to me,
as well as
baby.
fertility and fine material possessions like gold. In fact, one of the poems that Freya was featured in
Yo, you want to know something incredibly fascinating? This is like actually interesting. Freya is is why we have the day Friday. It's called Friday. The English days of the week. The English names for the days of the week are based on the Norse gods. So Freya is how we got the name Friday. You know, Friday in French is vendredi. Vendredi. So the French names of the week are all based on the Greek gods. So Vendredi is from Venus. Venus was Hera, the goddess of children, right? The goddess of fertility and having children. And Friday, Freya, is based on the Norse goddess of having children. So I just find it personally fascinating that somehow these two completely opposing religions, right? The Greeks and the Norse literally never touched, but somehow Friday was named after the goddess of fertility of each religion. I just find that so strangely fascinating. Some might call it a coincidence.
as well as fertility and fine material possessions like gold. One of the poems that Freya was featured in had Loki accusing her of sleeping with literally every god. She was certainly known for
Damn, Freya just gets better and better. She's an OnlyFans waifu.
being this seeker of pleasure and passion, which translates fairly closely into the character that we see in Danmachi. You see, Freya has a similar habit to Apollo. She'll make a move on any male or female that's caught her interest, then proceeds to do anything it takes to obtain said person, regardless of
Is there a lore
male or
explanation?
female,
Is there a lore explanation for why her booba armor is like this?
then proceeds to do anything it takes to obtain said person, regardless of whether they're already in a familia or not. Her particular tastes are towards the most talented adventurers, which, after spotting one, she will immediately do everything in her power to make them her own. So why hasn't she taken Bel for herself?
Because the guy sucks.
Well, Bel's sort of a special case.
I like my answer better.
Rather than swiftly stealing him away from Hestia, which she can do very easily on any given day, she decides to watch over him, noting how his alarming rate of growth is likely somewhat
Literally me when the growth is of alarming rate.
related to his relationship with Hestia, and to disrupt that would be the same as disrupting his growth. As for her own relationship with Bel, she likes to refer to it as love at first sight, enjoying every moment she gets to watch him grow. Not only taking pleasure from when he's courageously triumphing over powerful foes, but also when he's struggling through life-threatening situations. Both his anguish and his bravery appeal to this goddess, but it's hard to say if she would ever
Dude, her clothes diminish every second.
actually let him die. I mean, if he was to succumb to some unfortunate,
Dude, look at this character design. I'm in it for the character design.
then she'd made it clear that she'd chase after Bel's spirit all the way to the ends of space and time. That's just how obsessed she was with him. She even goes as far as to manufacture situations in order to accelerate his growth.
Damn.
In fact, the grimoire Bel used to learn magic back in Season
That's
1
so
was
cool.
something that was purposely planted by Freya to make him get stronger faster.
Oh.
Now, there's a couple things about Freya that aren't quite explained at all in the anime. Particularly how she's always able to keep an eye on Bel. When I mentioned earlier
I mean, she's a goddess, so...
that it was love at first sight, there was actually a bit more to it. It wasn't Bel himself that Freya was attracted to, but rather his soul. You see, just like
It's not about the size of the boobs. It's who the boobs are attached to, am I right? He's not attracted to her. No. He's not attracted. No, she's not attracted. She's attracted to his soul. It's the inside that's beautiful. She's just Fred from Velma.
You see, just like how the Norse god Freya is known for being one of the most skilled practitioners of Norse magic, Freya has a few abilities of her own that gives her an edge over the other gods. One
That zoom in is the edge over the other gods.
aren't of her
What
own that gives
abilities?
her an edge over the other gods.
Edge over the other
Ones
gods.
that
Yes,
aren't
I'm totally
classified as
listening to every word that you were saying.
Arcanum since they can't be turned off. One
God, I have to continue this anime.
is known as the Eyes of Insight, an ability that allows her to see the truth inside the souls of mortals.
Eyes of insight up here.
It's a natural gift that essentially shows the color and brilliance of the people of Gekkai. It's how she's able to decide who she wants to join her familia. And it was with
Why?
this ability that she first
Why is
spotted
this
Bel's
art
brilliant
real?
soul from the Tower of Babel. While he was trading with eyes on the city walls, a place that's normally off limits, she saw two rather rare spectacles. First was Eyes' soul, which was shining like a golden light.
Damn.
Then she saw Belle's, which was completely clear and looked wholly innocent.
That's so cool.
Needless to say, it was this.
What a
scene that
cool
drew her to
character. And it's so cool. She's not like a main antagonist. The world building is just really good. There's surprisingly good character development for different characters in Danmachi.
She won't stop trying to see more and more of it, all while trying to get it to flourish into something greater. But should something or someone try to get in her way of that, well, let's just say that there's a reason why she's the most powerful goddess in Orario. Switching over to another iteration of the goddess of love,
This is the best show of all time!
we have my personal favorite version, Ishtar. And it's totally not because the fake version of her is pretty much wrong. Anyway, Ishtar is like the original goddess of love due to her ancient Mesopotamian origins, however, isn't quite as known as her Norse or Greek counterparts. Within Danmachi, she's essentially the owner of the entire pleasure district.
It's like, yo, let's make some character design for Ishtar. But what should she wear? A necklace, okay? A necklace and... No, just a necklace.
The area known as Balit Babali. It's here that anyone could find a way to satisfy their most carnal desires. Now,
Me every time I stream.
there's nothing too much I can say about Ishtar without going into some major spoiler territory. But what I'm sure you figured out by now is that Ishtar absolutely despises Freya. She wants nothing more than to be able to take Freya's place as the strongest Ario. But unlike Freya, who actually respects her children, Ishtar isn't quite as kind to her own. Now, the last relatively unknown gods that have been mentioned in the main series are Athena and Astrea. Athena is the Greek goddess of wisdom and war, only ever being mentioned as one of the top 3 virgins of Tenkai alongside Hestia and Artemis.
Top 3 virgins, let's go!
Astrea is the Greek goddess of innocence, justice, and order, one that lived alongside humans during the golden age of man, only to abandon them at the dawn of the Iron Age and transform into the constellation Virgo. Being a
Damn.
goddess of justice, her familia once
Me, one day, doing my thing, chilling, vibing, become a constellation. Hate it when that happens.
acted as the police force that maintained a relative level of order within Orario. But after a trap was laid against them, all members except for Ryu were killed.
Oh, damn.
Astrea didn't want Ryu to go out and get revenge.
Oh,
She
damn.
pleaded with her not to seek out the ones that killed her familia. But that was something that Ryu just couldn't accept.
Is that a boob?
So Ryu had told Astrea to leave so she didn't have to watch her last remaining child go down this path.
That's what happened.
Yes, Astrea is still alive, but no one knows where she's been since.
That's
Moving on to some more
insane.
familiar gods now. Let's talk a bit about Soma, a word that was originally used to describe a plant-based drink that the Hindu gods used to gain their immortality. When it was given to humans, it gave them a boost in energy, thus making the eyes of both gods and humans alike see this Soma as some sort of divine substance. It was later personified as the deity Soma, sometimes representing the moon, but more times than not, the divine drink that he's named after, making him similar to the other Roman gods of wine. Knowing this, it makes sense why Soma is so devoted to his hobby of brewing wine. But I'm sure you've noted with the first few episodes of Season 2 that it seems to be something more than just a hobby. He would rarely speak to any of his familia, and focus solely on creating the wine that was in front of him.
So we're gonna show you these 5 women with the lewdest outfits in the history of anime, alright? And then there's this dude just wearing a freaking potato sack, making wine all day in his mom's basement.
Though that wasn't always the case. Once upon a time, he did have a wholesome vision for himself and his children. But after he saw how weak-willed his familia was to the effects of his wine, he lost all hope in them, and chose to instead use them to polish his hobby. He bestowed and entrusted all responsibilities to his chosen captain, Xanis Lystra, and ever since, hasn't touched any tasks related to his familia's affairs. After all, the fact remains that he did
Female character design versus male character design. Dude looks like an
It was only after
anti-protagonist, he really does.
really showed her resistance to the effects of his wine that he began to get a grip on reality again.
Oh, let's
Running
go.
parallel to this arc with Soma and Lily was the War Games arc starring Apollo. He's a much more complex god than simply just the god of the sun. He was blessed with many praiseworthy
He's much more complex than simply, you know, god of the strongest astral body in the solar system. Something that might at some point blow up in a few billion years and wipe out all of the entire solar system. You know, that really important thing that causes all of us to live, and without it we would all literally be dead. Yeah, he's not some basic bitch god.
resulting in him being known as the god of many other things, like poetry, truth, archery, music, dance, and even healing and diseases. Many artistic and creative subjects are attributed to him, which is why, at first, I found it strange that such a cultured god would be portrayed in such an Only after I realized that Apollo wasn't actually a villain, but instead just a god with an intense passion for the beautiful, did it start to make more sense.
Bro, he's just the villains of Gen 6 of Pokemon.
Especially after learning that Apollo is known for having many ill-fated love affairs, amongst both gods and humans alike, some of which share the names of his more notable children, like Cassandra, Daphne, and Hyacinthus. And I say ill-fated because not a single one of these relations ended up well. Cassandra was given by Apollo her prophetic powers as a means of seduction. However, Cassandra just didn't find Apollo very appealing. Now, Apollo wasn't allowed to simply take those powers back. So instead, he took away her ability to persuade people, making it so that no person would ever believe her prophecies, even though they are guaranteed to be always right.
Ooh.
Daphne was vowed—
Dog, if it's a guaranteed always right, then freaking listen. It's like, oh yeah, this guy predicted my future and he's 100% right, but he's an asshole, so I'm not gonna listen. Huh?
But Apollo grew in interest and stalked her day in and day out. It got to the point that she couldn't take it anymore, so she got the river god Peneus to turn her into a laurel tree just so she didn't have to deal with Apollo.
Literally me, when I don't want to deal with some toxic friend, I just turn into a laurel tree.
Apollo loved Daphne so much that he decided to wear a laurel wreath as a symbol of his undying love to her. In the anime, a similar styled wreath can be found atop Apollo's head.
That's pretty cool.
Finally,
They did a good job. That's pretty good.
Hephaestus was one of the
The river god, penis.
few people that actually loved Apollo back.
Sure.
But Hyacinthus had his own admirer, and when this person saw that they would not be able to step between Apollo and Hyacinthus' love, they killed him out of jealousy.
Let's go.
So, as you can tell, Apollo's role in Danmachi as this extremely passionate individual ties very closely to his mythological counterpart, much more than I ever could have imagined.
That's actually
Now,
really
a
dope.
god that we see a lot
That's
of, but
really,
whose
really
purpose
cool.
remains shrouded in mystery, is Hermes. Commonly known as the Greek god of trade, commerce, athleticism, and trickery.
Also
Similar
thievery.
to Loki, he was often referred to as this divine trickster. However, that title was often dwarfed by his more notable position as the messenger and emissary of the gods, one that would often have to travel between the realm of humanity and the gods, thus resulting in his equal appeal to both realms. He was a rather clever individual who would often use his wits to outsmart other gods, either for his own entertainment or for the sake of humanity. This is likely why Hermes in Danmachi may appear to others to be like this casual, mischievous individual.
probably could.
But as we've seen, he's
saying.
actually quite cunning.
Or at least
Most
half
of the
of them.
time, he'll prefer to just observe the events around him, often taking a neutral stance while watching everything unfold. But he will occasionally slyly insert himself into the mix to make things a bit more interesting. Being the messenger of the gods and someone who's frequently doing non-dungeon related quests for the guild, him and his familia are free to enter and exit Orario as they see fit. But due to Zeus's personal ask for him to watch over Bel, he's been spending more and more time within Orario.
Hold up, so that's why I didn't know. Was that made clear in the first season and I just forgot that Zeus was the step granddad and asked all these gods to pay attention to him?
While using his familia as a means to gain profit anywhere possible. This likely attributed to his roots as a god of trade and commerce. Let's talk Hephaestus next. He in mythology, or she in the show, is the god of blacksmithing and metal.
Yes.
In myth, he became known
Metal bending? Is that a freaking Avatar reference?
as the ugly god, because he was born lame with a physical deformity, which disgusted his mother Hera, resulting in him being thrown off Mount Olympus.
Which kind of
But
sucked. If I got thrown off Mount Olympus by my mother, I wouldn't end up nearly as sane of a human being as I am. The Nuxanor that you guys see that you all definitely should smash like on his videos and subscribe and click on another one after this one ends because it helps with the algorithm. That Nuxanor, that normal guy, bro, if he was kicked off Mount Olympus because his mom thought he was strange, dog, he would not be nearly as sane. I would have freaking gone the Sneeko route. Bro, I would have been calling Mags clips and everything.
Others believe that it's because Zeus was angered by him, so Zeus grabbed him by the leg and still threw him off Mount Olympus. Either way,
That's
his
cringe.
parents didn't seem to like him and he had some form of crippling body defect. Even so, he became a master craftsman, creating the most renowned architectural wonders, automata, and arms or armor that the Greek gods had ever seen. Thus why Hephaestus is known as the goddess of the forge in Tenkai, with her brand being some of the most sought-after goods not only in Orario but all over the world. This particular skill can be attributed to her ability known as Master Smith. Under normal circumstances, her superior craftsmanship would be a direct result of her arcanum, but with her natural ability of Master Smith,
That's
it
pretty
allows her
dope.
to make weapons like Bel's Hestia knife without the use of her divine powers. Now, you may be wondering where her physical defect is. Well, that's where the eye patch comes in. Apparently, many people seemed to fear or hate what they saw.
What? I mean, to be fair though, I think this makes a lot of sense. I take it all back. This makes a lot of sense. Like, think about it. She's working in like a forge all day. It's like hot, there's fires everywhere. And she's like, damn, I gotta disrobe a little bit here. I'm not, I gotta, like, yeah, cause of heat. Gotta love plot.
Underneath that eye patch. Members of her own familia seemed to cringe at the sight of it. This eventually developed into a complex due to the constant discrimination, leading to the eye patch that we see her wear today. Only Hestia ever acted normal around her, never showing any signs of fear or hate. It's for this reason that the two of them became such close friends back in Tenkai. Hephaestus even sheltered her in Gekkai while she was broke and homeless, at least until she realized that Hestia was just a freeloading NEET, which at that point she had to kick her out. Of course, not before finding her that abandoned church to live in and a job selling potatoes to make some money. Even now though, she still shows a lot of concern for Hestia. That's just how close their bond is. Other close friends of Hestia include Takamakazuchi and Miach. Takamakazuchi is the Shinto warrior god of thunder and swords,
Damn.
also sometimes referred to as the chief deity of Kashima, a subtle reference to the Takamakazuchi familia's captain, Kashima Oka. In myth, Takamakazuchi was most well known for leading a military campaign against humanity by the orders of Amaterasu. Though I think the aspects most relevant to the Take from the anime are his renown with the sword and his roots in Japanese spiritualism. It's these mythological elements that are likely passed down to the children of Take's familia, thus why their appearance and equipment seem to have such a strong Eastern influence, specifically their attire and their use of iconic Japanese weapons.
That's pretty
Miach
cool.
is known to be one of the sons of the Irish god of healing. The thing about Miach, though, was that he was a far more skilled healer than his father ever was. So much so that his father ended up killing him out of jealousy. But to highlight how skilled with medicine he really was, when his father attempted to strike him down with his sword, it took 4 strikes to complete the job. The first 3 strikes cut the skin, broke his skull, and even grazed his
Lord, that's a big person. He's the Nikokado god.
completely. Only after his father cut his brain clean in half did Miach finally die. Now,
Oh my
just like how
God.
he is in Danmachi, he was kind by nature, using his medicinal expertise to help others, becoming well known for replacing another god's silver prosthetic arm, one that was made by his father, with a different one made of real flesh and blood.
What?
This is a key theme referenced by Miach's child Naza. You see, when Naza was heavily injured in the dungeon resulting in the loss of her right arm, Miach gave up everything his familia had, and even went into debt to get his father's familia to create a prosthetic arm for her, a silver arm no less, pretty much making Naza a direct reference to the Irish god that Miach helped in myth.
That's so
Anyway,
cool.
Miach's background as
That's
this skilled
really well done. Yo, why is the lore for Danmachi actually so fire? It has no right to be this well thought out.
yet broke potion seller is well justified by his roots in Irish mythology. It makes sense why he would often give Bel and Hestia potions for free. It was just in his nature to help others.
Damn.
Finally, we have Ganesha, who really only ever shows up on occasion. He's
Ganesha,
named after the
elephant
highly worshipped
man.
Hindu god of beginning and success, easily identified as the deity with the head of an elephant, and represented in Danmachi more so as the outgoing god of the masses, who constantly references himself and wears the mask of an elephant. In Horario, he's one of the more
Pretty
open
straightforward.
gods, who will often hold festivities in his own home, which is something that no other god is usually willing to do. Although he seems rather self-absorbed, like by having a house that's literally in the shape of his image,
I would do that too, and I'm not self-absorbed. I'm maybe the least self-absorbed person on the face of the planet. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'm the best YouTuber on the world. Why don't you freaking smash that subscribe? Okay.
he's actually a man of strong ideals, always prioritizing the safety of Horario over anything else.
Damn.
So long as the people are protected and are having fun, his image means nothing to him.
That's
And
kind of
that's
based.
every god from the main Danmachi series as you know them so far. Of course, there are gods that I haven't mentioned, like Demeter or Dionysus from Sword Oratorio, but they could be shared another time. And yes, I know I didn't talk about Hestia, but I think that if I was to talk about her, she'd probably get her own video.
I
Anyway,
respect
I'm just
that.
testing out lore videos to see if you guys prefer this over the cut content. Honestly,
Yeah, that was really good. That was a really good video. I appreciated the freaking hell out of that video. That was really well put together, really well researched. Thank you, Annie News. Very cool. Subscribe and let me know if you want me to make Danmachi content, people. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. Stay weird, fam.